Hey guys, it's Karaleigh. I just want to share an extra little mini episode with you every single week because I want you to know that it's possible to do this thing called living your best life and doing the thing that lights you up while being a busy mom. And I want to give you a little bit of a background, behind the scenes look at what's going on in my actual life and how I am doing this, how I'm doing the things that light me up and being a mom at the same time. So I'm going to tell you about what's going on in my life and the lessons that I'm learning. Take a listen. Hey guys, so for this week's Minisode, I wanted to share my speech from my Toastmasters speech competition, which was on Tuesday, which was so exciting because I actually won, and I'm just so excited about that. But I wanted to give a little backstory before I shared this speech because I think it'll give so much more context for what I'm about to share. So I knew about this speech competition weeks and weeks in advance, and I was having a really hard time coming up with a topic for my speech because I was very concerned about winning, and I was really analyzing what topic should I choose so that I win, and how do I, strategically plan this so that I can have the best chance at winning. And what I was really looking at was how do I change my normal speech structure into something that is a winning speech structure, because I was looking at all the people I was competing against and feeling like there was no way I would win unless I changed everything about the way I normally gave a speech. The way I normally give a speech is very emotional and story-based, and I was looking at some of the other speakers and we have a speaker in our group who's very Tony Robbins style, and he actually used to speak with Tony Robbins. He's incredible, and that's a very loud, confident style, and it's not my style. So I was trying to figure out, how do I change me to be that? And really analyze, having this whole kind of internal struggle going, what am I passionate about enough that I could just stand there and basically yell at people for 5 to 7 minutes about. And I was struggling because I couldn't think of anything. I was like, there's no topics that I'm that passionate about that I could just, be on. I tend to have a lot of deep emotional and insightful type stuff in my speeches. So I was driving one day and just really, bashing myself in my head and going, I'm not passionate about anything. Oh my gosh. And I don't know if you know me well enough to know that that's not true. I'm extremely passionate. I'm almost too passionate. A lot of people describe me as really intense and just intensely passionate. That's very much me. But I'm not gonna just stand there and yell at people, for an entire speech, which is very Tony Robbins style, right? And I was just, because I couldn't make myself be somebody else, I was really feeling down on myself. And so I, finally did something right in this speech creation process, and I decided to rest. I decided to surrender, and I stopped looking for the perfect winning speech topic, and I rested. And I stopped the struggle bus, and I picked up a book. And it was an Abraham Hicks Money and the Law of Attraction book. It was not really important which book it was, but as soon as I stopped, fighting to find the perfect topic, that was when the perfect topic literally appeared right in front of me. It was the first paragraph in that book was about, what story are you telling? And now I had been thinking about, maybe I could tell the stories about, or the story of getting into the school or not getting into the School of Music and how I had this transformation, which I tell that story as part of when I'm interviewed for other people's podcasts, and I tell that story a lot. And you'll hear it because I'm going to actually air an interview of somebody else interviewing me for next Wednesday. So you'll hear that and what that sounds like. It's usually tagged onto my son's diabetes story, and it's really powerful. And I was trying to figure out how to separate that. And I was like, should I do that separately. It's usually tagged on, and there's a lot of through lines that have to do with Joshua's story and what I learned from that. And when I saw that paragraph in that book, and it was what story you're telling yourself, it hit me like just like an inspirational ton of bricks. That was it. That was the speech. And I just knew it instantly. And then I had another big roadblock come my way when I saw my friend, my beautiful, amazing friend, Audra Bartlett. And if she's listening to this, I want to thank her for triggering me. And it was Kathy Heller who told me, and if you've heard me talk about her before, she's also amazing. She told me it's a gift to be triggered. And it turned out to be such a gift that Audra triggered me. And Audra's been on this podcast before as a guest, and she just oozes confidence. She's like I am in awe of how much confidence she has in herself. And so when she posted on Facebook that she won her Toastmasters competition, and my internal response was, oh my gosh, if she won, I can't. Like, if she won, then winning has been taken off the table for me. Which was dumb, because she's not even competing in the same state. Like, logically, that actually makes no sense. But I was like, wait a minute. I'm so triggered by this. Why am I so triggered by this? She's an incredible human being. Like, it has nothing to do with her. It has everything to do with me, as all triggers do, which I learned from Kathy, and I'm so grateful for that lesson, because it's like such an important life lesson. So as I was analyzing this whole, why am I so triggered by this, I started to realize all of the roadblocks, all of the internal beliefs I have around competition and scarcity mindset around winning, and around I have all these things about if somebody is great, then I can't be that too. Then great's taken. And if somebody is winning, then I can't also win. And I had to really do some deep inner work around this scarcity mindset, around all of this competition and winning, because I know logically that the truth is that we can all succeed. And the quote is, or the line, it's not a quote because I can't remember it exactly, but it's a rising tide lifts all ships, rises all ships. And that's so true. We are all lifted when one of us succeeds. And I had to really start internalizing this message and clear some limiting beliefs. And I did some really amazing meditations, and I got some healing work done with a friend, and it was really a deep week of healing and internal analyzing of why do I feel like this? And I have to realizing that I had to clear some of these beliefs before I competed on Tuesday. And it was so worth it. It was so worth it to, deep dive into these awful things I thought, because by the time we hit Tuesday, I had hardly prepared my speech. It really had nothing to do with preparing my speech. It had everything to do with my energy. And my energy was glowing. This idea of, I'm just here to shine my light so that other people can see more clearly. And that alone is winning. If I can just shine my light the best that I can, that counts as winning. Oh, and staying on time was my other goal, because the speech was only 5 to 7 minutes long, and I have a chronic problem with going over time. And so I was like, if I can stay on time, hit all the points in my speech that I'm planning on, and just shine as brightly as I can, then that's what winning is to me. That's what success is to me. And so I gave my speech, and I won, and I'm still in shock over it. Like, I'm still like blown away that I actually won. So I'm going to play the speech for you because I did record it, and it might be hard to hear because I had a mic on, but it didn't work. I don't think it picked up very well. So here we are. I'm going to play for you my speech. It is called, What Story Are You Telling? Please raise your hand if you know what you want to be when you grow up. I know David does. And look, I know that deep inside of you, there is a child who is so excited for all the amazing things that you still have to do with your life. I know what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be a famous singer. Ever since I was so little, I could just see myself on all of the biggest stages with all the crowds cheering me on. I actually had my very first solo in front of a huge audience when I was only 8 years old. It was at a funeral. But when you're only 8, you don't really get to be picky and choosy about who you're performing in front of. But something happened that day that changed my life forever. Something happened when I was standing in front of all those people singing my heart out. Something clicked into place. The story that I told myself that day was that I was made for this. I was meant to be using my voice to impact people, to help people feel things. But the thing is, when you're just a child, the story that you tell yourself, that's when it's the most pure. That's when it's the most powerful. And then, as you grow up and you experience life and the people in your life, you get more stories added on to that original pure powerful story, and those stories start to influence the way that original story shows up. So when I was 16 years old, I released my first music video on YouTube, and I thought this was the greatest accomplishment of my entire life. Until the trolls came on YouTube, and they commented on my video, and they told me that I was fat. They didn't even listen to the words of the song I had written in that video. They couldn't even hear all of the emotion I had put into that song. And the story that I told myself that day was that nobody would be able to hear me if I looked like me. And so of course, the first thing I did was try to change how I looked. But that's a lot harder than I thought it would be. So I had a backup plan, I got creative, and I decided that I was gonna change how I showed up with my singing. And my great solution was that I was gonna sing opera. And so for the next 20 years of my life, I studied opera. And the problem with studying opera is that most of opera is in Italian or French or German. And I didn't get to write any of it. I was just singing other people's words, and none of it was me. None of it was my words. And then this thing happened, and you'll have to tell me if you've ever experienced this. 10 years went by in the blink of an eye. Has that ever happened to you? And just like that, I got married to the love of my life. He's right back there in the back. And we had 3 amazing kids, and my husband became disabled, and all 3 of our kids had special needs. And before I knew it, I was a caretaker to 4 people. And that dream of being on stage and using my voice to impact people, it wasn't really happening. And I had a new story that I was telling myself. That it was impossible for me to be a mom and a caretaker and to live my dream and use my voice. But I got a golden opportunity. What I thought was it. I went back to college at 28 years old after a decade of being away, and I got to audition for BYU's opera program for the School of Music, and I just knew this was my one chance to live my dream. This was it. I was gonna finally have my turn. And so in 2018, I auditioned for the School of Music, and I worked so hard, and I was so good. And they loved me. They loved my audition, and I made it through the first round, and I got through the second round, and I did not get accepted into the School of Music. And I was completely devastated, because the story that I was telling myself was that this was it. That was it for me. The story I told myself was that this meant that I was not meant to sing or use my voice. But the problem was that that story was in direct contradiction to that inner knowing that I was made for this. And those two stories could not both live in my head at the same time. And so I was having this inner battle of which one's gonna win. And the more that I looked at that 8-year-old's power, the more that all of those other stories started to disintegrate and fade away. And this thing happened. This song came to me, and I hadn't written my own song in decades. And this song was all of the words that I needed to hear when I was 16. And all the words I needed to hear as a mom and a caretaker. And all of the words that I needed when I got rejected from the School of Music. And it went like this. But wait, maybe it doesn't have to look the way they said it did. And wait, what if it's not too late to change your mind or change the world? Don't give up just yet. You know what you want to be when you grow up. I know that you know what you were made to do in this world. What stories are holding you back?